Welcome to Your Mac Life for Wednesday, July 2nd, 2014, show number 1014. My name is Shawn King. Thank you guys very much for joining me here on the show, whether you're listening in live or whether you're tuned in via our archive. On tonight's show, as always, we've got our good friend Jim Dalrymple from The Loop at loopinsight.com talking about his impressions of Yosemite after having worked with it for about a month now. We'll see what he has to say about that and other things that have popped up in the news this week. The decision of Apple to kill Aperture will definitely be a topic of conversation that we will discuss. We'll also be talking to Robert Latchman. Robert is the staff photographer for the Los Angeles Times, a dying breed of photographer over there at the Los Angeles Times. Excuse me. He will be on talking about fireworks, shooting fireworks with your iPhone in particular. And quite often, a lot of folks will take fireworks photos with their iPhone and they'll be crap because they don't know what they're doing wrong and what Robert's going to do. He wrote a great article over on the LA Times website about the best way to shoot fireworks and some pieces of software, apps that you can get that will help you shoot fireworks much, much better. So hopefully you guys will have a safe, fun July 4th weekend and be shooting all kinds of fireworks and send them to me at Shawn at yourmaclifeshow.com. Let me know if you learned anything from Robert's segment and whether or not your fireworks shots got better. We're also going to be talking a little bit about my trip. I was back home in Nova Scotia this past weekend, Thursday to Monday, visiting family and friends in Nova Scotia. Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada is my hometown where I was born and brought up, and up until college age was there. And then hung out with my sister and her brother-in-law, Darren, and my lovely, cute little niece, Emily, in Bridgewater, Nova Scotia, actually Western Shore, Nova Scotia. Beautiful part of the country. If you ever get a chance, come on down to Nova Scotia. It's if you're looking for a vacation that is familiar and yet not so familiar, Nova Scotia is a wonderful place. I'm always trying to get people to come and visit my home province because it's a beautiful, beautiful spot. So if you get a chance, plan a family vacation in Nova Scotia. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Actually, we'll talk about it right now. Oh, and also, for those folks who have noticed, yes, let me get these out of the way. Yes, those are lobster. Those are two of them. From Clearwater.ca is the website. Clearwater is a big seafood company in Nova Scotia that I think almost everyone buys their seafood from Clearwater. The website is, let me just check to make sure, Clearwater.ca. I think they even ship lobster. I'm not sure. You can get lobster grams. You can get lobster in all kinds of different ways. But they were selling these little bad boys at the airport for like $9 a pound. And I walk into the airport, I check in, and then I'm walking down. I've got like 2 hours to kill before my flight. I don't want to go into the security gate just yet. So I'm walking back and forth in the concourse. And so I walked down to the where the shops are to get a Starbucks, whatever it is. And I saw the Clearwater store there. And there was live lobsters walking around. And I was like, oh, man, I'd love to get a lobster. I turned and looked, and they were like $9 a pound. Oh, and from living in the States and living here in BC, that was dirt cheap for lobster. And so, oh man, I wish I could afford that. Oh, so I walked by, and I came back, and I looked, and I walked into the store and looked at the little lobsters and thought I should rescue some of you guys. I really need to rescue a couple of you. And you can buy them live or cooked. These ones are red, and so that means they're cooked. A lot of folks don't realize that. Live lobsters are dark green color for the most part. And so I'm thinking, yeah, I need to get a lobster. So I went back, I walked away, came back a third time, and started tweeting about it. With the lack of self-control, I knew I was going to buy one. I mean, just from the get-go, I knew I was going to buy lobster. Just because I miss it so much. It's the delicacy of how good lobster is. And lobster is, to a Nova Scotian like me, a pure food. You don't need to do anything to lobster. You buy it either cooked or raw, you boil it, you eat it. Done. Then you got to go in ravioli, you don't got to grill it, you don't got to, you can do all that stuff, but again, to Nova Scotians, we just, a little bit of drawn butter, done. I mean, this is a Canadian 4-course meal, Nova Scotia 4-course meal. 2 lobsters and an Alexander Keys. 2 of these. There's my 4-course meal for tonight. That's what I'll be enjoying. So, What's up, Brian? Brian says, lobster's great, butter, maybe salt and pepper. I never put pepper. I don't think anyone has ever put pepper on the lobster, even salt. But the thing is, Brian, you generally, at least back home in Nova Scotia, we always had lobster bakes on a beach, so at the ocean. So you'd boil them in ocean water. If you're cooking them raw, if they're alive when you cook them, you just heavily salt the water. These ones are already cooked, so they're already salted. But I've never added extra salt on cooked lobster. Generally, they're a saltwater animal to begin with, and so therefore they are already fairly salty. The biggest problem I'm going to have is how to crack open these bad boys. I mean, these claws are they're leaking. These claws are awfully tough to break. You can't break these things open by hand. You have to have some sort of tool to crack these things open. So yeah, this is supper tonight. I'm going to enjoy that immensely. No, it's strange, but it was one of the weird things was, like I said, I was born and brought up in Nova Scotia, in Halifax. And so going back home, the old thing, you can never go back home. And to a certain degree, that's true from the point of view of, home has changed. It's been 25 years since I was back home in Nova Scotia. And so I recognize the general layout of things. And plus I've got a bad memory to begin with. I didn't remember whether that building had been there or that kind of thing. It was good to see that a lot of the historical aspect of Halifax, I still remember. The town clock is a classic Nova Scotia image that many of us, if you've seen pictures of Nova Scotia, you've probably seen pictures of the old town clock and things like that. It was great to see one of my favorite pubs, the Seahorse Tavern, the oldest pub in Nova Scotia, was still there, along with another pub I used to hang out at in Nova Scotia called the Split Crow, was also there. This is a picture of St. Paul's Church, which is the oldest building in Halifax and the oldest Anglican church, I think, in North America, certainly in Canada, the oldest Anglican church in Canada. That's the old picture of the old town clock, for those of you who are watching the video. I think it was opened in 1803, an iconic picture of Halifax. I had to take this picture because this represents Halifax. The cenotaph that we went to when we were kids, my dad was in the Canadian Navy, so we always came down here on Remembrance Day in Halifax to participate in the ceremonies of the War Memorial remembrances. The cemeteries. I love shooting in cemeteries. Cemeteries don't creep me out. I'm not one of those guys that get squeamish because of a cemetery. So I got some great shots. You can go to startingpointphotography.com and check out the story there if you want to see more of these pictures, want to see them up closer. So it's fun playing around with some of those pictures. The Nova Scotia College of Art and Design. A lot of folks don't realize. You know Anne King of Siam, Anne King and I. That was Anna Leweyhoven. I'm not sure what it was. When she left Siam, she came to Nova Scotia and started the College of Art and Design. Busters are very popular in Nova Scotia. I love the second picture I got of this particular buster, just some guy in the waterfront. But it blurred really, really nicely. I love the blur on this, the motion blur on it, because his face is still in focus. And I didn't do this on purpose. It was a complete fluke that this picture came out as well as it did. Normally, the kind of blur wouldn't work at all. So I was there in Halifax to do my photography seminar, and we took some of the students after the seminar to the public gardens, which is a beautiful, beautiful, called many times the best example of a Victorian groomed garden in North America. It's a beautiful spot, right in the middle of the city. Not as big as Central Park or Stanley Park or things like that, but it's still a very, very pretty groomed garden there. Some wonderful scenery. If you're a photographer, there's some great places to take shots. Even if you just want to go on a walk, one of the urban oasis type things in the middle of the city, there's some great views. The bandstand is a classic, iconic shot of Nova Scotia. I was so happy to see that the bandstand was still there. In the summertime, there are actual bands playing on this, and they are all kinds of music, usually classical music. I love this is a water fountain that had some great moss look on it. I thought it was wonderful to get that shot. So we had a lot of fun with the photography class and gave away some great prizes. And again, I want to say thanks very much to the nice folks at MacFun software, macfun.com. Joby, makers of the Gorilla Pod camera holder. Epson, makers of some fantastic printers, the R2000. We were able to give away, thanks to Epson. One of our students won a $600 R2000 printer from Epson, so thanks very much to those guys. The nice folks at Olo Clips sent us a bunch of Olo Clips for iPads and iPhones that folks can use for their photography. Lowepro sent us a bunch of bags. I think I want to say 7 or 8 different kinds of Lowepro bags. So thanks very much to the nice folks at lowepro.com. Backblaze gave us some software to give away for backing up your computer. And the nice folks at Pixelmator gave us some copies of Pixelmator to give away. And we got some of that stuff is still left. So I'm going to give away a copy of Pixelmator on tonight's show. If you want to enter into the prize draw, it's easy. Go to the website at yourmaclifeshow.com. Right there on the front page, you can, at the top, go to the Friends of YML contest entry form, and it's real easy. All you're going to do is fill the entry form. It sends me an email. I put your name in the virtual hat, and later on tonight's show, we'll be drawing for a copy of Pixelmator. If you're a subscriber to Your Mac Life, don't worry about it. Subscribers get entered into the contest automatically. You're going to do a darn thing, and I'll get you subscribed just as easy as that on your behalf, so don't worry about that. As we said later in the show, we're talking to Robert Lachman. Robert is the staff photographer for the LA Times, Los Angeles Times, and he wrote a really neat article about shooting fireworks with your iPhone. We'll talk to him about that later on in the show. But up next, we're going to talk to our good friend Jim Dalrymple from The Loop at loopinsight.com. So stay tuned for that and much, much more. This is Your Mac Life. Welcome back, folks. This is Your Mac Life. Thank you guys very much for joining me here on the show. We've got on our phone now, we've got our good friend Jim Dalrymple from The Loop at loopinsight.com. Let me just get this stuff hooked up so we can get Jim on the phone. See if I did this right. We should be able to hear Jim. Jim, you there? Jim? Jim!
What? What?
What? You knew I was there?
I know.
Okay.
But you were calling my name.
Don't be difficult.
What?
Don't be difficult tonight, okay? I'm not in the mood for you.
Well, that would be a change for me then, wouldn't it?
It really would. Jim, you wrote an interesting article. It just popped up on the Loop, loopinsight.com today, about your, it wasn't a review. We're not going to call it a review of Yosemite, but your opinions of Yosemite after a month or so, correct?
Yeah. It wasn't a review.
Yeah, you're not going to review Yosemite until it actually becomes a real piece of software, right?
Right. I mean, a review would mean that I would dig into the features and say, yeah, this doesn't work and that doesn't work, but you can't do that with beta software.
I was interested to read in the piece that you are using it as your everyday OS. That isn't something you're just using to test every now and then. It's stable enough, at least for you, that it can be used on a regular basis.
Yeah, I honestly, I love it.
That really surprises me.
Great
yeah, it surprises me that now, have you run your music software? Have you run, or are you just running the basics of email and web browsing and things like that?
Well, I run all the software that I normally run.
Yeah.
To get my work done. So, but a lot of that these days is web-based, but I still have a lot of apps that I either write with or that I post to WordPress with, because the back end of that is so stupid. So Mars Edit works and Byword works and, apps like that. I'm not having any trouble with it all.
Have you run any of your music software? I know you're a big Logic Pro fan.
I haven't run any music software, no.
Yeah, I was going to be curious to see whether or not that stuff was stable under Yosemite. I would expect it to. I don't know. What's your thoughts on that? Would you expect it to be stable?
No.
No? Okay.
I wouldn't expect it to work. No. Okay. Because, there's so many things that like Pro Tools and the audio software digs into and the core that I just wouldn't expect it to work at all.
Now, you are, like me, a man of a certain age, and we tend not to like change a whole lot, but I was surprised to hear you say that you really like the redesigned interface, in particular the system font. You said the system font is much easier to read. No, it's actually a delight to read. Why do you say that?
Because it's so clean. When you log into as Canadians will say, OS 10 Yosemite, it's just such a treat. It looks so beautiful, and it's not transitions. It's just, this is the way it looks. There's no magic going on to make things pop in and pop out, although there is. This is just the basic look of it.
Yeah.
And it's gorgeous.
Now, I haven't yet to install it. I just haven't had the urge or the interest enough. I've been reading a lot about it. And that was an aspect that when we saw it at WWDC, a lot of folks instantly disliked this new redesigned interface. But I think that's the kind of thing that after a while of using it, you're going to get used to. Don't hate Yosemite simply because of the user interface. Very much like iOS 7. When it first came out, I utterly hated it. Now I don't recognize it. I don't think about it anymore. It doesn't bother me anymore. I think the same thing's going to happen with Yosemite, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, I was concerned about things like the transparencies, and I was concerned that these types of things would be distracting.
Yeah, but
they're actually not. It's you kind of get the feeling that there's nothing hidden, that there's nothing hiding from you.
Yeah.
When you have an app up, it's blocking whatever's behind it. Well, now it still sort of is, but it still sort of isn't. I mean, you have this feeling of real openness in the OS when you're using it, and I really like that. And the reason that I decided to put all my apps on just to see if they would work is because it was so beautiful that I wanted to use it.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's not often that you say that about an OS or an app, but it's just so nice that you feel so comfortable in it that you want to use it. But that's the way I felt with that, and it's the way I feel every time. So I do go back to Mavericks every once in a while, but that's just because I've been too busy or too lazy to install the other apps that I need to put on. So it's just easier to reach over to my MacBook Air and fire those up. And it's, in comparison, it's ugly. I don't really like it.
One of those things that I'm interested in, but I don't necessarily use, is the idea that Apple is not tying your iOS and macOS together so much as running them, as I've described before, in parallel. That there's things that you're able to do on both. Now, because I just sit here all day long, I don't really know much about that. But you are a person who gets up and moves around and travels and writes on the road and then comes back to your laptop to write. How is that working? That handoff, that continuity kind of stuff. Are you seeing glitches or problems there?
Oh, well, it's beta software.
Yeah.
So that's why I didn't dig into that. But those are two that I'm really going to enjoy. I mean, imagine you're sitting in an airport like, what is it, New Jersey, and SFO don't have free Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
So, you have to go to one of those stupid services.
Yeah.
So you can just connect to your phone, and it'll turn on a hotspot for you, and you're just connected. It's done. When it's in range, it knows, and it'll just do it. That's perfect. Just perfect. So those are the types of things. And handoff. You start typing a story on your iPad, and then, you're on the plane typing it. You open up your Mac when you get to the terminal or to the hotel, and it recognizes that you've started typing something, and you can just continue on. Yeah. You just press a button, and it brings all of that information over for you, so you don't have to you start or sync it or wait for it to sync or move it or email it to yourself. Nothing. That's brilliant.
There is, for a lot of us old timers, this isn't exactly, but it's almost the holy grail of what we wanted back in the day, of being able to sync automatically all of our devices, that all this data is going to be in the cloud, and you'll access that data in the cloud. So like you said, when you're working on a document in the airport on your iPad, and then when you get to the hotel, you sit down on your laptop, boom, it's there, and done seamlessly. That's the key. You've been able to do it in the past, but it hasn't been seamless. You've got to be a bit of a techie, nerdy kind of guy to do this. Do you have concerns, though, that if the cloud is down for whatever reason, you aren't in a place with internet access or those kinds of things, that your data gets locked into a space where you can't get at it? Is that a concern for you, do you think?
Well, I think that things like that are becoming a lot less of a concern.
Yeah.
It was more of a concern before that, oh, well, what if we're without internet access? Mm-hmm. Now, if we're without internet access, we're screaming bloody blue murder.
That's right.
So, and I think there's a lot of things that we start to take for granted.
Yeah.
Now, and having access all the time is just one of those, in my opinion.
Is the other concern I have, and I didn't have this concern before I moved back to Canada, is bandwidth charges. I mean, if I'm working on a Keynote document, and I've had this happen, I'm working on a Keynote document on my Macintosh, and then I want to share it or I want to use it on my iPad, Apple very helpfully will put that Keynote document into the cloud. The problem is that can be, because it's a picture-heavy document, 50 megabytes. But if I'm limited by the cloud storage I have, either from Apple or from my bandwidth from my provider, you can rack up 5 gigs, 50 gigs fairly quickly if you're moving a lot of data back and forth, like I tend to do with the photos I have. That's one of the concerns I have, too, with bandwidth caps and with everything being in the cloud, is it could rack up some serious charges for you over a fairly short period of time.
Well, this is, especially in Canada right now, this is something that is a real problem.
Yeah.
And it's something that people have to be aware of, mm-hmm. But it can't stop, Apple and Google and Facebook and all the other companies from innovating, because the carriers are so archaic.
Agreed.
That they can't, see past data caps and things like that. Yeah. So I don't blame Apple for this. I blame the carriers and the government for this.
Sure, I agree. You folks are talking to Jim Dalrymple from The Loop at loopinsight.com. Jim makes a great point in the article, thoughts on OS X Yosemite that he's posted up on loopinsight.com. He says, we don't want to manually sync devices in order to get documents or data. It should just happen automatically, and it does with Yosemite. Even now, under Mavericks, I have to manually take that Keynote document and put it on the cloud and then manually put it on my iPad. With Yosemite, it's going to happen automatically. I won't even have to think about, I should save a copy to the cloud so I can get it on my iPad. It's going to be there anyway. I think that's very cool and very exciting. Regardless of my concerns about bandwidth or the cloud not being available, it's still a really neat idea, and it's going to be so helpful for average users. One of the things that you do when you're doing tech support, whether you're doing it online or with family and friends or anything like that, is trying to get people to understand how all this stuff works. And it can be very confusing to non-techies. The more Apple can make that easier and simpler, the better it's going to be for everyone involved.
Yeah. And that's what Apple should be doing.
Yeah.
They have to leave the other stuff to the people that should be worrying about that, and they need to make cool stuff. And in my opinion, that's what they're doing. Now, when you're talking about, apps and documents, I open a new documents automatically in the cloud.
Yeah.
So mine don't open on my hard drive; they're automatically saved to the cloud. So when I, click save, I go to my iPad and there it is.
Yeah.
It's there in the cloud and it's saved. So I don't have to move anything. But they've taken that even a step further by allowing you to open it while you're working on it on another device.
Yeah.
So it's so cool to see that happen. Now there's going to be some things that developers will have to enable their apps to work with that, so that handoff can actually hand off the documents. And of course, you need the same app on your iPhone as you have on the Mac, so that it knows. And but yeah, I mean, it's beautiful to have that working like that.
Let's talk a little bit about Aperture. Apple announced to you directly, Jim Dalrymple broke the story that Apple was killing Aperture. What was your sense when you first heard this from Apple? Was this a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, my first sense was, not being a photographer, was, wow. It was one of Apple's pro apps.
Yep. Now,
when you look at it, it hadn't been updated in a while.
Yep.
So there's that side of it. But I listened to them, with photos, and I know that pros aren't going to like the Photos app as much as they would have liked an updated Aperture.
Sure.
But, Apple's going where the people are, and but for people to say that, well, photographers are no longer important to Apple is wrong. I think photographers are very important to Apple. It's just the consumer photographers are important, or are more important.
Wait a minute. You said you believe, and I'm asking you this because you're the one who spoke directly to Apple. You said Apple believes that pros are still important. Did they tell you that, or are you making that assumption?
No, I'm making that assumption.
Okay, all right.
They didn't say that. They didn't say one way or another. Okay. I just assume that pros of all kinds are still important to Apple. But where does Apple make its money? On iPhone.
Yep.
So it makes sense that they're going to build an application. Now, my feeling, and this isn't from Apple, this is just my own thought. My feeling is that Apple will make photos, kind of a mix between iPhoto and Aperture.
Yeah. So
that there will be some organizational abilities in there, but there will be some editing tools in there. It's not going to be as powerful as what pros would want, and it's going to be more than what consumers will ever need. So, I mean, think about it. If we have our photo library in the cloud now, we're golden. We got everything we need. I mean, that's for me.
The problem, there's several problems I have with this whole Aperture thing. Was, first of all, it's tough to trust Apple to build a business on. Aperture was a professional application. Apple encouraged people to use it in a professional manner. They did stories about professionals using Aperture. Now, pros knew a year ago, 18 months ago, that Apple was probably going to do this, and many pros moved away from Aperture because they didn't trust Apple to not do exactly what they did. So the problem I have with the Photos app is Apple is not telling people now, today, what it's going to be in the future. I know they don't usually do that, but in a case like this, to allay people's fears, I think they should have. I think they should be telling us, hey, folks, it's going to be like the Final Cut Pro thing, where we changed Final Cut Pro and stripped out a bunch of stuff, but over time we put it back. Apple's not telling us that. Apple's not telling us these kinds of things that pros, and I'm nominally a pro photographer, things that we want to hear so that we can trust Apple to build our business on their software. There is no way I would tell any pro that I would recommend to them to get or wait for the Photos app. I tell pros, go to Pixelmator, go to Acorn, go to Lightroom, or, God forbid, go to Photoshop. Because I tell them I don't trust Apple not to do the same thing that they've done in the past, which is screw the particular community that they normally were serving. I wish Apple had never gotten an Aperture if this is what they were going to end up doing. If you're going to do stuff, Apple, do it. Do it all the way. Give your wholehearted, full-throated commitment to it, and don't just half-ass it, because that's what they've been doing with Aperture for the last 2 years. They've been half-assing it.
Well, I mean, I don't know what happened in the photo industry in the last couple of years, but I do know what's happened in the smartphone industry.
Yep.
And I dare say that one is overtaking the importance of the other. You know, it seems to me that Apple is putting its money and its resources behind the thing that's making them the most money.
Sure, I agree. And that's fine. I mean, that's fine. You can say that. The problem is when you do things like this. I mean, it's in your story on loopinsight.com. You say Apple was very clear when I spoke with them this morning that development on other pro apps like Logic Pro and Final Cut Pro is continuing. I don't believe them. There's no reason to believe, to trust that what Apple says is true. If this is what they've done, because in the past, they've done this to other applications. I said on the pre-show. QuickTime is a perfect example of this. They got companies to build entire corporations around QuickTime and QuickTime Broadcasting, and the same thing happened. Final Cut Pro, the same thing happened. Apple's done this over and over and over again. So while they may tell you that development on those apps is continuing, I don't necessarily believe them.
Interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting point.
I mean, I completely agree with you when you say that Apple's focusing on the guys that make the money, and that's fine. But if that's the case, don't try to equate Aperture with Photos app, with a professional level app, which is kind of what Apple's doing here.
I don't think that they are.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think that they're trying to equate Aperture with Photos at all. I think what they're saying is that Photos is going to be the company's photo app.
Sure. Yes.
That's it. So it's going to take over from iPhoto, and it's going to take over from Aperture. If you're too pro for Photos, then you should go to Lightroom.
Yeah.
And everybody else can either stick with Photos and work with that and the features it has, or maybe Photos is even too much for you, and you need to work your way up to that. But even if that's the case, it's going to give you some room to move. And
that being said, I mean, you mentioned Apple's going to do what makes them money. Well, iPhoto doesn't make them very much money. The Photos app, which I think is going to be free, isn't going to make them any money. Aperture at least made the money if you take away the development cost.
No, come on. It is going to make them money because they're selling iPhones and iPads.
Yeah, but no one's going to buy an iPhone or an iPad because it has photo apps on it.
But somebody may not because it doesn't. I mean, we're to the point now where we need and want everything handed to us on a silver platter.
Yeah, agreed.
So if you say to somebody, you have a Photos app on your iPhone, and you also have the same Photos app on your Mac, you have the ability to organize in the cloud and store in the cloud, all of this kind of great stuff, then that may be a contributing factor for somebody to say, well,
Yeah.
you know, I do take a lot of photos. I also make movies. What do you got there?
Yeah.
Well, got movie software on both too, and we've got audio software on both. So, you know, that kind of stuff, supporting that ecosystem of apps and people, hundreds of millions of people,
Yeah.
is a very smart business move for Apple.
One of the commenters on the Loop story, Free Diver X, made what I think is a very good point. He said, given the sensitive nature of this announcement, I don't think it's sensitive, but given the nature of this announcement, would you agree Apple could have done a better job communicating it?
You mean years ago or now?
Now, I mean, the way I wish Apple would have done this, if they had brought on pro photographers who'd said, "Hey, we've been using the beta of Photo app for a while now. Here's some really cool things you can do with it. I don't miss Aperture." The usual marketing stuff.
I don't think that's it.
Yeah.
I don't think that's what Apple's going for. I don't know that I haven't used Photos, but I don't know that there's enough in there for pros.
No, true, but at least it would give more information and allay some of the concern. Because we've seen 8,000 articles over the last few days about people yelling, "Oh, woe is me about this. Oh, this is that." Whereas if Apple had given more information up front, there would be fewer of these kinds of Sturm Drang over this kind of decision.
I don't know that there's anything that they could have done, to be honest with you,
Okay.
because I think that we're looking at a situation where you're taking away a pro-level piece of software.
Yeah.
And that's like saying, that they're going to stop production of Logic, and you're going to get some engineers in to say, music engineers, and say, "Oh, GarageBand is wonderful."
Yeah, yeah.
That I don't know if Photos is going to be like that, but then that's what I think. It's kind of like saying that, and people like me are going to sit back and say, "What? No,
Yeah.
not at all." So
Let's move on from this story. I've got to ask. I've seen a couple of posts on it, but when are you quitting Facebook?
when am I what?
When are you quitting Facebook? Facebook is sorry that we're upset over the study meant to upset us. Do these kind of stories just make you shake your head and move on? Or does the story of Facebook manipulating our news feeds, manipulating the news feeds of almost 700,000 people, does this upset you? Does this make you angry at Facebook? Do you want to quit Facebook? Or is this just par for the course?
It made me angry at the people that are yelling about it, because you must be ridiculously stupid to think that your news feeds haven't been manipulated by companies for the past 20 years since the internet came out.
Yeah.
Well, the internet's been out longer than that, but I mean the modern internet where we're browsing. This happens all the time. It happens every single day. People are fed different information.
Yes.
And it's done for a number of reasons. One, to see what you click on. Will you click on this story because it's got a better headline? Will you click on that one?
Sure.
Because it's just the way things happen.
Yeah,
and it happens every day. So Facebook did it. So what?
Well, no. Hang on. Facebook did it differently and for a different reason. Yes. Companies do A/B testing all the time. Let's see if this headline gets more clicks than this headline. Facebook, the study itself was done to manipulate the emotions, to manipulate people psychologically, to see if they would then post more negative or more.
That's a bunch of crap.
That's what the study authors said they were doing. Now,
okay.
It doesn't work, but that's what they were doing.
So does everything else.
But not to
everything does that.
Not in this kind of way.
If you go to a website, let's say you go to the Loop, and I'm doing A/B testing, and it's automatic, and you get a headline. One says thoughts on OS 10 Yosemite, and the other one says OS 10 Yosemite sucks balls.
Yeah.
and I want to see which one people are going to click on.
Yeah.
Because the only thing I care about is what you're clicking on, and why are you clicking on it? Because of your emotion.
Mm-hmm.
You look at it and say, "Oh my God, what did he say?" And you click on it because you're interested, you're angry, you're whatever. Maybe you're depressed by the time you end up reading it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's why I'm doing it. That's what everybody does. That's what every market research company does. And for people to be upset about this now shows that they do not understand what's happening on the internet every day.
Brian Monroe in the RC chat room says, Shawn, go into a retail store. They have music playing. Many times it's happy music so that you will purchase more. This is the same thing. Marketers work on emotion all the time. Facebook is just another marketer.
Yeah,
okay.
It's true.
All right.
I mean,
all right.
Brian is absolutely right. No. What? Think about this. Now, I worked at a newspaper before I did this, and I remember at the newspaper where, and you can still see this going on in ads today. I worked at a newspaper where a company would put in two different ads, one in the morning edition, one in the evening edition.
Yeah.
Then the next day they would switch them. The afternoon edition would be in the morning edition to see what kind of response they get from those. That was print ads. I mean, that's archaic in today's standards.
Yeah.
But they were still A/B testing.
Mm-hmm.
They were still maybe they were basing that on emotion. Would you go buy because you saw a little kitty cat dead on the road in their picture,
Yeah.
or would you be all sad because you saw that? What would your reaction be? Well, now they can take that information live. They can take it and study it.
Mm-hmm.
Then it was over a month that they would have to study it. Oh, we saw an uptick because of this. And it was during these times, so it must have been because of this ad.
Yeah.
But the exact same stuff is happening. It's just happening in different ways and for other reasons. But Facebook can take that information and say to an advertiser, okay, you want better return?
Mm-hmm.
We've done a study, and it says that if you post these happy things, that these people are going to buy. And that's what advertisers want. They want people to buy. So I just think it's so naive of people to think that, oh, we feel hard done by and we're going to close our Facebook account. Oh, go ahead and close it, you loser.
And on that note, we'll let him go, folks. We're talking to Jim Dalrymple from The Loop at loopinsight.com. He has his own podcast called Amplified. He does it with Dan Benjamin at 5by5.tv. You guys did Amplified this morning, didn't you?
We did.
Is it up on the iTunes store yet? I don't see it on the loopinsight.com yet.
I didn't post it yet, but it may be.
Okay. Yeah, check it out, folks. You should get it on iTunes anyway and have it automatically download to your device of choice. Jim Down from The Loop, thanks very much for joining me, buddy. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Shawn.
Have a good night. See you. Bye.
Bye.
Next up, we're going to talk to almost immediately. We're going to get on the phone with Robert Lackman. Robert is the staff photographer for those nice folks over there at the Los Angeles Times. So if you'll bear with me, I'm going to call Robert as we speak. So hang on a second. There'll be a little bit of a... is that working? Calling Robert. You guys will... Hello, is it Robert? Are you there? All right, Robert. It sounds good. Don't have you on air yet, so I'm going to put you on speakerphone right now. You ready? All right, here we go. All right, there we go. We get Robert. Robert, tell me the correct pronunciation of your last name. Is it Latchman or Lackman?
Lockman.
Lockman. Robert Lockman, LA Times staff photographer. Now, staff photographer, those are as rare as hen's teeth. I mean, you're the white rhinos of newspapers nowadays, aren't you?
I would say, it's not a profession that's growing a lot. That's what you want to,
Yeah,
if you want to put
exactly.
it that way. But there still seems to be a need for it. And even though taking pictures has certainly got a lot easier than when I started at the paper 39 years ago.
Mm. Yeah, easier, but still not the same. You still need to be trained as a photojournalist, don't you? It's not something that no matter what Chicago newspapers want or what other any newspaper want, the average person can't properly just be a photojournalist because they can take pictures, right?
Well, the one thing, though, you do have to remember is that being at the right spot at the right time is an important part to getting news photos.
Yeah.
And that's where you're seeing people shoot pictures with their phone. So sometimes there's those pictures you just can't get to that other people have.
Sure.
Uh, when I first started, there was a lot more of a science to it. People weren't carrying cameras with them in their pockets.
Yeah. Those have become ubiquitous, and we will see all over Flickr come Saturday morning 8,000 really poorly done iPhone fireworks shots. They're going to be blurry, and they're going to be too far away, and it's going to be ugly, and people are going to look at them and go, well, why didn't I get the shot I want? One of the things I teach in my class is that people forget that the iPhone is a really, really good camera for a phone. For a camera, it still sucks. And people have
it's really good for certain stuff.
Yes. You have to shoot within the parameters of the iPhone, correct?
It's amazing on some of the pictures you can take with it.
Yeah. Some of them can be very, very good, but you have to know what the iPhone, quote unquote, likes as a photograph and what it doesn't like. So let's talk about fireworks. Folks are going to go out to their local beach, to their local town square, to the local the field, and see the fireworks demonstrations on Friday evening. What's the first thing you would tell somebody when it comes to shooting fireworks with their iPhone?
Well, you might want to lower your expectations just a little. But remember, it's a lot more fun being in an event like that just with your phone. Certainly, you're not going to take great photos of multiple bursts and those kinds of things. You just can't. It's not possible right now with that phone.
Yeah.
But you can shoot some, nice pictures that represent the event.
Mm-hmm.
You can get tripods, or you can get like a, they make the flexible tripods you can get. So there are ways you can help yourself, but do you really want to go to that much trouble?
Mm-hmm. Is that it? Are you saying people shouldn't really bother to go to a whole lot of trouble to get iPhone shots because they're just not going to be able to get good ones?
I wouldn't say you're going to get something that's spectacular, but on the other hand, you want to enjoy yourself and you
Sure.
don't want to make it work. So, I mean, there's little tips you can do. I would say things like you want to turn your flash off.
Mm-hmm.
You'd want to hold your camera, try to hold it as steady as possible. The real problem with the iPhone, though, is you can't really hand hold it and get a slow shutter speed. It's not really how it works.
No.
You can try, and you can try to fool it with some of the apps out there. But I found, have you ever tried any of those slow shutter type apps?
Yeah, I've used one called a Trigger Trap, and I think the other one, if I remember correctly, the app, it's actually called Slow Shutter.
Slow
I've used
shutter
both of those.
cam, I think it is.
Yeah.
Have you had much success with them?
No, it does. They don't look great. They'll capture the idea, but they're certainly not tack sharp. I would never expect tack sharp out of the iPhone in general, but certainly not with any of these apps.
I think they sort of try to fool the iPhone. I don't think you really get an actual open shutter for a long time with your aperture closing down, and that's where you kind of have to figure out what to do. But I would say try to one of the things with your iPhone too is it's not going to know you're shooting fireworks. And the one nice thing with it is you can press your finger and lock the exposure and the focus, which is a nice thing to do.
Yep.
And so if you hold down on the screen for like 2 seconds, you'll see like it blink a couple times. It's kind of a yellowish square.
Mm-hmm.
And then above it, it'll tell you that it's on the lock. And if you do that ahead of time, maybe on a burst ahead of time, and then shoot for the next burst, it should be in focus in the right spot, and you should have the right exposure.
And it will stay locked until you either touch the screen some other place or turn the app off by going to a different app on it.
I believe so. I haven't used my iPhone enough out at these events. I'm usually out there with some nicer cameras. So I think this is my first time I'm going to go this route. Sometimes I'm lazy and don't even want to get out there with the crowds. And like I mentioned in my little article, the other trick you can do, if you have a little tripod, there are some cases that have tripod mounts if you want to do it that way.
Yeah.
You can also use your earbuds to snap the shutter so you're not pressing against the phone. And that actually is the time, I think most of the time when people make their photos kind of blurry because there's motion blur from pushing your camera as you take the picture.
I love that one tip. Let's explain that one a little bit more, especially given the fact that and it really ticked me off that under iOS 7, Apple has changed the way the big button on your camera app works. And in the past, iOS 6 and before, you could hold down the button and steady yourself, keep your elbows in and do all that kind of stuff. And it only took the picture when you released your thumb off the button. Now, if you hold the button down, and it's not a real button, obviously, the virtual button, if you touch the virtual button, hold it down, you take 8,000 pictures, and you can't turn that off. I like burst mode. It's set on all my cameras. I like burst mode, but at least I can turn it off, Apple. You can't turn burst mode off anymore. So a lot of folks don't realize it's the volume button on the camera itself, the physical volume button that you use to turn music up and down. But a lot of folks don't realize it's also on the earpods, in the earbuds, isn't it?
Yeah, and actually, if you're into taking selfie-style pictures, it's a great way to take them because...
Yeah, don't tell folks how to do that, Robert.
Okay, sorry.
I'm kidding.
But actually, it's a nice way to do it
Yeah.
because you're not trying to fumble around, take the picture with your finger, and it's a little inconvenient. And this way, the earbuds don't really have to even show in the photo.
And I think it works for any earbuds that have a volume control, not just the Apple earbuds. Am I correct?
I believe that's correct.
Yeah, and you don't have to, obviously, you don't have to have the earbuds in your ear, but just connect your earbuds to your phone, and then have the volume button in your hand. And then when you go to shoot the fireworks or the selfie, you just click the volume button, and it will take one picture for that. It's a really neat little tip that I don't think enough people know about.
Yeah, it's one of those ones I doubt most people know about.
Yeah. It's something I teach in the class, and everyone in the class, my photography class, they all go, "Really? I can do it that way?" And yeah, and they play around with it. And like I said, either the volume button on the phone, or I'm pretty sure I've used it with my Etymotics headphones and with other headphones. So I think it's not just with the Apple earbuds; it's with any headphone that's got a volume control on the actual earbuds themselves. What are the tips you got for us, Robert?
Well, this would apply to other cameras too. I would make sure that your phone has some space left on it to take some pictures.
Yeah, good point.
Because, when those fireworks go off, it's not really the time you want to start fumbling around removing photos from your disk or your phone. And so try to clear off some space before you start. I think that's kind of important. And I would even say that with any camera you have. And the other one, I wouldn't try to zoom in too much because that digital zoom on your phone isn't real good. So I would just shoot it as is and then crop later.
And it's true that all digital zoom is crap, isn't it? I mean, if you've got a point and shoot, if you've got an iPhone, if you've got any kind of camera that does digital, I've never seen good digital zoom on any camera at any level.
In any of the tests I've done, it's pretty much equal. You're pretty much just blowing it up. So I don't think it specifically does any kind of corrections to fix it. It just blows it up. And another thing I also recommend is shooting a little video because it's kind of fun to have the video, and you can make still frames from the video and send that out on Instagram and Facebook. They look pretty much like a still photo.
Especially if you're lucky enough to have an area where your fireworks are synced to music.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, the William Tell Overture is very, very popular, and things from Beethoven and Bach and that kind of stuff. And that's really kind of cool to get that video. But now, are you one of those video Nazis that tell people they've got to turn their video to landscape mode, or do you care whether it's in portrait or landscape mode?
I'm a pretty hardcore to keep it in landscape mode.
Are you?
Yes, absolutely.
See, to me, I don't care if you're enjoying yourself and you're shooting video. I'm okay with it being in portrait mode, or I don't care what mode it's in. I don't care which way you're holding your camera. Just take good pictures. Take good video. That's all I care about.
Well, it's kind of funny you mentioned that because, when we do photo galleries, now everything on the internet's horizontal.
Yeah.
So you're pretty much geared. It's like vertical. What's that?
Mm-hmm.
So things have kind of changed. But I don't really like to see those videos with the black edges on them. It just sort of seems like kind of a waste. It kind of drives me crazy.
Now, one of the things that I tell people in the class in general, and this is true of all photography, get as close as you can. If you are a long way away, if you're miles and miles away, you're not going to get good shots of the fireworks. You want to be able to fill your screen with some sort of fireworks, some sort of bright image, right?
Absolutely. And that's actually one of the nice things about shooting with your iPhone is, you just got your phone and you're taking pictures, and you can usually move in a lot closer. You're not trying to carry a tripod and wade through people and get a spot. So most of the time you can get pretty close, I would say. There's a good chance you can kind of work your way in. And, it's always nice if you have some stuff in the foreground
Mm.
or a cityscape in the background, or the fireworks reflected in the water. But it's like any other good photos, being in the right spot is probably 50%.
The only you said our friend Monty says here's a tip if Robert doesn't have it on his list: turn the damn flash off instead of on or auto. Others are around you are less likely to hit you. That was your first tip,
Yeah,
except when, and I don't even know if this would work. Could you get, and you're the photography pro here, so help me out. I want to get a picture of my friend with the fireworks behind them.
it
Could I?
should work.
So that would work as a fill flash. Would the fireworks wouldn't blow out the flash, would it?
No, you should. It should work okay. I mean, I think it's just a general thing to kind of leave it off. I
Mm,
would say, yeah, if you're trying to get someone in the foreground and the fireworks in the background, I mean, it's asking an awful lot for your phone,
yeah.
but you can give it a try.
Now mention the software that you recommended again.
Slow shutter cam, if you
Yeah,
want to try. I mean, there's Camera Plus is another app that you can kind of change some of the exposure, and you can do the separate focus and the
yeah.
exposure lock, which is a nice app. But what I recommend to people is don't try new apps when you go out for the first time.
That's right.
I mean, see, I try to keep things as simple as possible, and that's
Yeah.
probably why I'd recommend using the regular camera app.
Yeah, either buy them now and practice with them now, or wait until next year. But yeah, don't just sort of mess around with stuff today. The other thing I really liked that you suggested in the article, folks were talking to Robert Lockman, sorry, he is the Los Angeles Times staff photographer. One of how many staff photographers does the Times have, Robert?
We have less than we used to.
You know,
I guess around. I think we're around 30 maybe right now,
wow,
but
that's
we've added more people to do video now.
yeah.
We actually have video photographers and staff and regular still photographers.
Good.
But a lot of people do both.
Hmm.
So it kind of everybody does more video now.
I'm really looking forward to seeing and we've heard a little bit about it from the iOS 8 beta. Looking forward to seeing how much more control Apple gives us over our apps with the new manual controls in the iPhone. This is going to be really intimidating for a lot of beginning shooters or people who aren't familiar with the terms and technologies involved. But I think for pros like you and for hopefully talented amateurs like me, the idea of being able to have that control that some of these apps allow you of exposure. For example, I'd love to be able to hold my iPhone open for 15, 20 seconds and get a bunch of like a time lapse shot of fireworks. It's a perfect example of that kind of thing, or a moonrise and things like that, which are hard to do right now. You can do it in some apps, but being able to do it natively in the iPhone app would be really cool. Have you looked into any of this kind of future iOS 8 photo application stuff?
Not really, because I really like using a high quality compact point and shoot
Mm.
because you get all that. You get faster. Um, you get faster lens opening. There's a lot of advantages to using a nice compact camera.
Like what? Is there anything particular you'd recommend, or any brand, or anything like that?
All the companies make fantastic. I mean,
You coward!
Canon.
You coward!
I'll pick a few.
All right.
Canon, Nikon, uh, Panasonic, Olympus.
Yeah.
Olympus is making some nice, really smaller, the mid-size cameras.
Yep.
I have an older, the newest one would be the S120, but you can pick up a S110 is a really nice camera. It's really small and it has Wi-Fi, and that's probably about $240.
I think my favorite tip, and you've got to incorporate this in your story next year, is from one of your readers who says, "Here's a hint no one has posted: turn your camera around and take pictures of people's joy watching the fireworks. Don't use a
I like
flash." It blows the mood. But isn't that a great idea? Turn the camera around and use the light from the fireworks to light their faces up and get
I
that.
like that idea.
I love that idea. I hadn't even thought about it. We're so focused on what's in front of us. Take a couple shots. Turn around, folks. Take a couple shots behind you. It could be family and friends and your kids and that kind of stuff. But they'll have that wonderful look. Their eyes will be up. And if you're old like us, you won't have double chins. And so there'll be fewer shadows on their faces. Those could be some really, really nice shots. I love that tip.
Absolutely.
It's a good idea. Folks, go to the website, latimes.com. Actually, we've linked this up on the yourmaclifeshow.com website. Robert's got a bunch of tips up there. Robert, let's talk about your own personal camera gear. What do you use to shoot with when you're on assignment for the LA Times?
I use all Canon gear.
Yeah.
I mean, the company provides the gear, so that's what I use. I would say most professional photographers are using the Nikon and Canon stuff.
Yeah.
Gear. I use. I don't use the top of the line ones, but it's they make some really nice cameras in that range. I like the new 70D by Canon. It's really a nice new camera. That's actually one of my favorite cameras out right now that I would, if I was to buy one myself, I'd probably buy that.
Which camera do you use for your personal stuff, or do you use the company
The
stuff for
7D?
7D, yeah.
Yeah, but I enjoy. I have a I like I do go for a lot of walks and stuff like that, and I like one of the Canon Super Zoom. It's got a 24 to be the equivalent of 24 to 1,200 millimeter zoom lens. Have you ever tried any of those cameras?
No, that's huge. Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun for going on walks. Let me find the model here to get it right. It's the SX50HS. Now, it's got a smaller chip in it, and so you can't. I did a review on it, so it's a great camera for hiking, and you want to take pictures of birds and those kinds of things. It's not real good for high quality, but you're not gonna. Do you really want to carry a 600 f4, a tripod on a 5-mile walk?
Yeah, really, exactly.
And plus the cost and the weight, it's incredible. So there's a lot of advantage to all the different cameras. I love them all, and I really like some of the new Olympus cameras out there. Pretty nice. Their mid-size cameras are fantastic. They're doing a lot of cool stuff. Fuji's even doing some, very innovative stuff with their cameras.
I think it's really interesting how it feels, and I don't know if this is in fact true, but it feels like Canon and Nikon really have dropped the ball when it comes to the mirrorless market. Olympus makes great mirrorless cameras. Fuji does, even Panasonic, which is not a camera company that I would have ever recommended before. But a lot of these companies are making amazingly good, even better than the Canon and Nikon, mirrorless cameras. I'd encourage folks to get to your local store and check out the mirrorless stuff and do research online for them, because if you don't need or want the bulk of a big DSLR, you can get some amazing pictures with the Olympus and the Panasonics and even the Sony Fujis mirrorless cameras. So check those out.
I think the hardest thing for most people is most people have a few lenses.
Yeah, good point.
And so all of a sudden now, those cameras are not a lot cheaper. So that's where it's kind of tricky on the investment part of that. If those cameras were much cheaper, I'd say people would be flocking to them. But it's kind of hard to make that change, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. Yeah, the idea of lens lock is very common among people who talk about this kind of thing. Is that you tend to, if you start getting lens envy, you start to go down that path. That path gets very, very narrow for you. I'm lens locked into Nikon. I've got probably $5,000 worth of Nikon lenses that I'm not going to switch to Canon or someone else because I can't do anything with those lenses. So I'm kind of locked into Nikon now. So luckily enough, I like Nikon, so that's good for me. But something to consider. But if you're just a beginner shooter, don't just go with what the pros say. Oh, you have to buy a Nikon, you have to buy a Canon. Take a look at the second tier companies, the Olympuses and the Fujis and the Panasonics. They're making very, very good cameras.
Well, I think a lot of professional photographers are using those now, especially ones that travel a lot and do that kind of photography.
Yep. Yeah, you can take some amazing travel photography with those smaller cameras and be more not more, but you can be unobtrusive with this small little, looks like a typical tourist camera, if you like, as opposed to the big massive black bodies that we have with some of the pro cameras. I've been talking to Robert Lockman. He is the staff photographer for the Los Angeles Times. His website is photographyandthemac.com. He's also up on Twitter at photo. What is it? What's your Twitter? I had it here.
Photo and Mac.
Photo and Mac is his Twitter.
It's only
account.
two things I use: photo and a Mac.
Exactly.
Photo and Mac.
Then you are a happy man, Robert. Thanks very much for doing this, buddy. I really appreciate it.
It's been a lot of fun. It's been a long time since we talked, and it's been fun.
We'll have to do it again soon.
Sounds great.
All right, thanks, man. See ya.
I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Again, his website is photography. Let me get it right. Jeez. Website is photographyandthemac.com, and his Twitter account is photoandmac at Twitter. I'm going to plug this thing in right here, so let me turn the volume down so I don't blow your guys' ears out. Hang on a second. There you go. That shouldn't have done anything to you guys. Now, for those folks who are... oh, by the way, is she in here yet? There you go, Sly. Sly is not here because we've been having IRC problems. Everyone has noticed that. I was wondering why when the show first started, it was just me and Charles Plater. It was like, oh, no one loves me anymore. But it turns out everyone's having IRC problems. I had them at 4:30 when I was trying to log into the IRC website. So our apologies for those folks who are trying to get into the IRC chat room. Brian says, Shawn, you could sell your lenses if you wanted to, I would think, but I get what you're saying about lens lock. Yeah, I could sell them, but I'm not going to obviously sell them for anywhere near the value of what they are. Sometimes it's easier to keep going forward than it is to go back. Now, if you were going forward into a bad place, then yeah, I would sell my lenses and go somewhere else. But Nikon makes great cameras. In the range of cameras I want, the range of lenses I want, Nikon makes great cameras. Same with Canon. If you're at that upper end, I would say, and I know my friends at Fuji and Olympus and those kind of companies are going to get mad at me, if you're going high end, if you want to be a pro and you're specialized, you want to be a pro sports photographer, a pro landscape photographer, a pro wedding photographer, you're probably going to go with Canon and Nikon. All right? If you're not at that level, if you're a beginner or a talented amateur and don't need or want the big giant body of a DSLR from Nikon or Canon, Olympus, great cameras. I mean, look at this picture. This is the picture for those folks who were following earlier. I went to my home province of Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada, this past week. Check this out. This is a picture that my niece, first of all, I'll show you the picture of the niece. This is a kid who poses even when she's behind the camera. It was so funny. We were sitting on the beach, and here, her name is Emily. She's very, very cute. Where'd the picture go? Come back. That's the picture. Oh, jeez. Clicking the wrong buttons at the wrong time. So, this is a picture of Emily, my niece, and she's behind the camera, and she's still posing. She's full of ham. The kid is just completely full of pork. She's so cute. She's so wonderful. But here's the picture that she took. It turned out really, really nicely, Emily. If you're listening to Uncle Shawn, it turned out really, really good. She took some other photos of her mom and her dad and me, and the photos came out really, really well. Some douchebag, and I posted on Facebook. There's an Olympus OMD Facebook group page, whatever the hell they call it on Facebook, and I posted the pictures of Emily shooting with the Olympus. It was kind of a cute picture. I said, look, the Olympus M1 is so easy, even an 8-year-old girl could take pictures. And some douchebag writes back and goes, yeah, so it's a point and shoot. Dude, don't be an asshole, okay? Don't be a jerk. There's absolutely no need for you to be a dinka with this kind of stuff. So we went to Western Shore. This is another shot of my niece Emily showing off as she's wont to do. Brian Monroe says that's a nice photo. I'd use it for your Twitter profile. The best thing about that photo is, and you can see it. This is the picture of Emily using the M1. The best thing about that photo is, and she didn't do it on purpose. I'm sure she didn't. But you can see Emily in the reflection of my sunglasses. It's really, really a really cool image. I really like the way the image came out. And yeah, you're right, Brian. I might use that. I might post that up on my for my Facebook page. It's a good shot no matter who took it. The fact that an 8-year-old took it makes it an even better shot. You know, it's an even better shot because an 8-year-old girl took it. I was saying before how weird it felt to be back home in Nova Scotia. One of the issues was I was going back to a city that was very familiar to me 25 years ago. And of course, it's going to change. That's a significant period of time for any city, especially a small city like Nova Scotia, like Halifax. The weirdest part was I kept recognizing people. I kept seeing people I knew or thought I knew, but I didn't know them. And even worse, I thought I recognized them as if they were from 25 years ago. What I mean is, I'd be walking the street and I'd think, hey, that could be Tommy. But it was another college kid. in my mind's eye, the person I was recognizing was 25 years old. I forgot, or I couldn't in my mind's eye, age them, 30 years. So I kept imagining, oh yeah, that could be, no, it might be her daughter, but it certainly isn't going to be the person that you went to high school or college with. It was even worse when I was in the south of Halifax, with the town I actually went to high school in. When I kept seeing these people around my age thinking, I know them, because that neighborhood, the Bridgewater, Mahone Bay, Lunenburg area, only had one high school at the time. So if you're my age, we all went to the same high school. But because they were, in their late 40s, I couldn't really spot them and see if they were actually the person that I thought. It was just kind of weird. It really threw me off. A lot of the places I went to in Nova Scotia obviously were different. There's one street, I think I mentioned on last week's show, that Argyle Street had like 10 pubs on it that we would go to on a regular basis in college. Well, none of those pubs are left except for the Seahorse. The Seahorse is Halifax's oldest pub, and it's really kind of cool to go into. Seahorse is in the basement of the building, and it's this dark and dingy and dank kind of pub. It's like, yay, it's the exact same as I remember it. But here's the picture I was talking about. You can see Emily in the reflection of my sunglasses. I think it's a great shot. I think she did a really, really nice job on that image. So it was kind of weird going to these places. None of the other pubs on Argyle Street were the same, which is, 25 years. I didn't expect it to be. Walked around downtown, a lot of downtown. The stores have changed. The buildings are pretty much the same. But the stores have changed. The shops and that kind of thing. The downtown core, the waterfront of Halifax has gotten a lot more touristy. It's always been a tourist town, but even more so now, 25 years later. The hipsters did not take over, Brian Monroe asked in the IRC. I saw very few hipsters, very, very few, and even those might have been tourists. But Halifax is a huge college town. I think there are 7 degree granting institutions in the city of Halifax. So if there were going to be a lot of hipsters, it'd be a good spot for hipsters. But the hipsters haven't taken over, or haven't really got much of a foothold in Halifax. The first thing I did walking along the streets was I found an Irish pub, and I love Irish pubs. And I sat down, and for the first time in at least, just certainly for the first time since I left Nova Scotia, I had good scallops. Now, you think you've had scallops, wherever you live, whether it be San Francisco or New York or whatever, Vancouver, whatever it might be, you think you've had good scallops. You have not had scallops until you've had them in Nova Scotia. For some reason, Nova Scotians know how to make them better than anyone else in the world. Every scallop I've had, and I've tried them all over the world, every other scallop I've had has been chewy. A scallop should never have any sort of, when you bite into it, should never have any kind of rubbery texture. Should never bounce back from your bite. Your teeth should go into it very, very smoothly and very, very easily. If it doesn't, that scallop is too rubbery. These scallops were so good. Oh my sweet Lord, they were good. I wanted to order like another plate of scallops because they were so freaking good. So yeah, you haven't had scallops, certainly seafood, until you've been in Nova Scotia. Brian Monroe drools over. Steve Plater. Is Steve Plater still in the RC chat room? I asked you to remind me of something, Steve Plater, and I've forgotten what it was. So if you remember, please post it in the IRC chat room. Brian Monroe says, drool lobster rolls. See, I don't mind lobster rolls, but I prefer, as I said earlier, my lobster to be unadulterated. I don't need bread with my lobster. I don't need rolls with my lobster. I don't need anything else with my lobster except lobster. Arcsine says, I love fresh scallops. We used to eat scallops raw in Nova Scotia. I used to work at the fish plant, and we would accidentally drop a 50-pound bag of scallops onto the deck of the boat. Oh no! And while you're scooping them up, we would eat a few. They were good. They were yummy. My friend Maurice Chevalier writes, he's in Edinburgh, Scotland. Good for him. He was asking before, and I mentioned this earlier, why the lobsters I have red? And here the little beauties are for you who have missed it. There's 2 lobsters. Why are they red? Well, lobsters naturally are green, a dark green. and they become red when you boil them. Just like you would if someone boiled you. You'd get red too. And someone else asked before about the size of lobsters. These are about 1.5 pounds. And that's pretty much the sweet spot for lobster. You don't want to get, some stores, some restaurants will offer, buy this 4-pound lobster. The over 2 pounds, the bigger it gets, the tougher it gets. Matter of fact, a 4-pound lobster would be like eating shoe leather. You don't want lobsters that are that big because they're old. Lobsters get bigger as they get older, and they get tougher too. So yeah, 1 pound to 2 pounds is the sweet spot for lobster. You don't want a lobster over 2 pounds for your own personal eating. So don't go for the big ones because you think you're getting a better value or because you're getting more lobster. Rather than getting 1 4-pound lobster, get 2 1.5-pound lobsters, or 2 1 pound or 2 pound lobsters. They're much better for you than one giant lobster. And MacMan says, and mostly water after a certain size. Yeah, they're mostly water anyway because they're seafood. The question I was asking C Plater to remind me of, does Lightroom do non-destructive editing like Aperture does? Yes, Lightroom does do non-destructive editing, except I don't care because I never work on my originals. I will take the files off the camera, put them on the laptop into a folder that's dated and then descripted. In other words, so my folder will have 2014 06 30. So I know the date the photos were taken. And then in a folder in there, I'll have the location I took the photos. And so I dump the photos into that folder. And then I immediately make a copy of that folder. One copy of that folder immediately before I do any edits goes to a backup drive. In particular, it goes to this backup drive. This is the drive that's got all my photos on it before I do any edits. And then Dropbox gets a copy of those folders too. So now I've got 5 copies. One on the disk, on the actual SD card that I took the pictures with. One on the hard drive. One on a backup hard drive. One in Dropbox. So that's 4. And then I'll start working on a copy of that folder. So that's the way, because I'm really insanely anal about this kind of stuff. I don't ever want to lose a photo, so I always work on backups. Monty says, fresh lobster, some alderwood chips, a grill, and a little fresh clarified butter. Nope, don't need it. That may be good, Monty. I agree with you. It may very well be good, but Nova Scotians, we don't need them. We don't need all that kind of stuff. We don't grill for the most part our lobster. Brian Monroe says, what about Flickr, Facebook, Google Plus? You use them for backups. Flickr backups. When I take photos with my iPhone, and I yet take a photo with my iPad, but all my iPhone pictures get backed up automatically to Flickr, and they get, backed up automatically to Dropbox. But I don't, the photos from the camera, the DSLR camera, don't get backed up to Flickr until after the edits. In other words, when you see my photos on Flickr, those are post-editing in Lightroom or Snapseed or Film Noir or Photomat, whatever app I'm happening to be using at the time. I don't put the raw files, I don't mean raw as in NEF files, but I don't put the unedited photos onto Flickr until they're actually ready for folks to be seen. Shawn, ArcSign says, Shawn, you have to share Sherry's pick about boiling. Sherry's pick about lobsters while boiling. Okay, what is this? Yes, that's a common picture, folks. ArcSign posted it. I don't know if I can get it. Hang on. I got to be able to get it on for you folks who are watching the video feed. Come on. It's a small picture, but it's 2 lobsters talking to each other. It says, I hate the way they scream when you boil them. It's not screaming, it's just the air escaping. Yeah, you know what? People are always up in arms about boiling lobsters alive. I'm okay with it. I just, sorry, but I don't have any qualms about it whatsoever. I've boiled thousands and thousands and thousands of lobsters alive and have no moral qualms about it whatsoever. It's their own damn fault for tasting good. All right? I got no sympathy for them. Besides, they're crustaceans. They have little tiny brains. And, people have said, yes, they feel pain. Again, don't care. I should work up some sort of stress about it, but honest to God, don't care. I do not care if the lobsters feel pain. And I know they don't feel pain very much because you have a pot of boiling water and you put them in head first. And that kills them instantly because, boiling water. And maybe that doesn't even instantly. Maybe it's for half a second, but they're dead very quickly. So I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about the pain I cause the lobster, if only because they give me so much pleasure. I love the little guys so much. Going to do a draw. Oh, by the way, happy Canada Day to all my fellow countrymen, my compatriots, my fellow Canadians. Hopefully you all had a fun, safe, happy Canada Day yesterday and got to see your own fireworks and got to hang out with family and friends. To our American friends, July 4th is this Friday. One of the problems is it's a Friday, it's a long weekend, so y'all got to play safe out there. Don't be stupid. Don't go to Target with your guns. But hopefully you guys will have a good Independence Day in the United States. And send me pictures. If you take fireworks pictures, send me a link to them on Facebook or on your Twitter feed or on your Flickr feed. I'd love to see what kind of photos you guys take of your fireworks. I did the photography seminar, Photography Secrets Revealed, in Halifax. That's why I went to Halifax this past weekend. And I want to say big thanks to all the folks who attended. Thank you guys very much. Thanks very much to my sister for helping to organize it. My lovely sister Melanie. Thanks, Mel, for helping to organize it and letting me stay with you guys down there in Western Shore. Had a great time. We went out fishing on Sunday. We actually caught fish. We caught 7 mackerel, which would have been tasty if we hadn't accidentally cooked them on the deck of the boat. We screwed up. But I want to say thanks very much to the sponsors of the event, the advertisers, the prize givers, companies like MacFun at macfun.com, Joby, makers of the Gorilla Pod, a line of tripods for the iPhone, your point and shoot, and for your SLR. Epson gave us a fantastic, amazing R2000 photo printer. Thanks very much to the nice folks at Epson for that. Oloclip sent us a bunch of Oloclip lenses for the iPad and the iPhone. Lowepro sent a bunch of Lowepro bags. Everyone knows I love my Lowepro bag. Love my Transit Sling 250 AEW Lowepro bags. Thanks very much to the folks at Lowepro for sending us bags. Backblaze sent us some codes for online backup. Thanks very much for the folks at backblaze.com. But we're going to give away on tonight's show some codes for Pixelmator. Thanks to the nice folks at Pixelmator, especially with the idea that Apple is killing off Aperture. Maybe some folks want to get into software like Pixelmator, full-featured imaging editing for your Macintosh. So if you haven't, hurry up, do it while I'm talking. Go to the website, yourmaclifeshow.com. Right there at the top of the page, it says Friends of YML Contest Entry Form. Fill out that entry form. Make sure there is a valid email address there, because if you put a fake email address there, I can't tell you won, you doofus. It doesn't matter. The rest of it can be fake. I don't care the other stuff. The other details, the other information is just personal information that I want to know, sex and age and that kind of stuff. It doesn't get sold to anybody or anything else. Don't worry about that. But make sure you've got a valid email address in there. Email comes to me. I drop it into a virtual hat. You get entered into the prize draw. Maybe you win stuff. If you are a subscriber to Your Mac Life or would like to be a subscriber to Your Mac Life, go to the website, yourmaclifeshow.com, left-hand side. There it is. It says subscribe. You can subscribe for $2, $5, $10, $15, $20, whatever amount of money you want to subscribe per month. That money comes to me. It helps pay for lobster. And it helps pay for, cool lobster coffee mugs. Keep calm and eat lobster, which is good life advice in general, I think. And it's got a cute little lobster even on the inside of it. The other thing it helps pay for is taste the Clearwater difference wherever you are. Lobster-flavored mints. I don't know if they're actually lobster-flavored, but I just think the idea of lobster-flavored mints would be kind of funny. And as some of you have already noticed, my cool Halifax t-shirt. Let me see. Halifax. A lot of folks don't realize Halifax was founded in 1749. It was a city. It's been a city that long. I'm a proud Haligonian. So we're going to do a drawing for a copy of Pixelmator. Thanks very much to the nice folks again at pixelmator.com. Let me get the folder open for the subscriptions. There it is. Make sure it's randomized. It is. So all you got to do is someone in the IRC chat room say stop. Brian Monroe already did it. You're already way ahead of me, Brian. Thank you. This is going to go out to Gerald Thomas. Gerald Thomas doesn't say where Gerald is from. He has a email address. Thank you very much, Gerald. You want a copy of Pixelmator from the nice folks at pixelmator.com. Thanks very much for being part of Your Mac Life, Gerald. We're going to do this again on next week's show. I think we've still got 5 or 6 more software codes to give away to folks. So we'll be doing this for a while. So if you didn't win this time, stay tuned. You might win again in the future. I have to go because these things are starting to smell wonderfully. They're calling my name. They're saying, Shawn, heat us up and eat us. I haven't had lobster in probably 10 years. Probably since I was in Nashville and we went to Red Lobster. It was awful. It was terrible stuff. So yeah, you guys have no idea how much I want to run out and eat these things right now. So I'm leaving. It's 3 minutes to 7. I'm out of here. I gotta go. Don't forget to check out the website at yourmaclifeshow.com or our photography website at startingpointphotography.com. I'd love it if you guys checked out either one of those. Your Mac Life is also on Facebook. Do a search for Your Mac Life on the Facebook site and you'll pop up with our Facebook page. We've also got a photography page. Starting Point Photography is on Facebook. And we've got another site called My Best Pick Of. If you so choose, if you would like to show us what your best picture of something is, you can. You just go to the website at facebook.com and do a search for My Best Pick Of, and what will happen is you'll get the site and you'll get I like the site because I like that page because it allows you to show us pictures. They don't have to be great pictures. They can be average, everyday pictures, but it's pictures that you think have a story to them. Pictures that you think are important. They don't have to be the greatest picture in the world, and they don't have to be with a professional camera. They can be with your iPhone or your point and shoot or whatever it might be. Whatever you like from the point of view of the photographer. Send those, you can post those at My Best Pick Of. I love that section of the website. Folks, until next week, as always, thank you guys very much for joining us, whether you're listening to us live or whether you're listening to us via the archive. I appreciate all of our listeners. Until next week, I've been Shawn King, and you've been listening to Your Mac Life. See ya!